responses, the big findings of this Bharat Pulse survey on India's foreign policy. Let me bring in Veena Sikri, former diplomat. She's joining us live. Also with us is Madhav Nalapat, editorial director of the Sunday Guardian. Ambassador Sikri, let me bring you in here first on the first big result thrown up. So overwhelming 76% people believe that, 78% people believe rather, that India's global stature has risen over the past few years. What do you make of that response?
I think it's an accurate response. I think it's a very positive and good response because certainly in the last 4 years, let's begin with the COVID crisis and going on from 2020, it's just been one more difficult year than the last. You know, 2020 was the COVID crisis. 2021, you had the Myanmar crisis when the Myanmar army overthrew the elected government of Aung San Suu Kyi. And since then, it's been downhill in Myanmar. In 2022, you had the Russia-Ukraine conflict beginning, which is still going on. October 2023, you had the Hamas-led attack on Israel, which is still a terrible crisis. And of course, in 2022, we also had the Sri Lankan economic crisis. In India's own neighborhood, you've seen Myanmar in 2021, you've seen the Sri Lanka economic crisis in 2022, where India gave a very big helping hand. And of course, then from July, August 24, you've seen the Bangladesh crisis. And I think the way in which the government of India has handled each of these crises, global and regional, and a combination because everything's happening at the same time. These are absolutely overwhelming, overlapping crises which have made the world a much more difficult place, leading to your question about the possibility of nuclear war. But I think that the government of India has adhered to both its policies of strategic autonomy. And on the Ukraine-Russia conflict, we've seen that India's positive role in this conflict, India's role in talking to both sides of the conflict, emphasizing the need for dialogue and diplomacy and an end to war, has earned India a great deal of global respect worldwide, because more and more people believe that India can be and should be even a mediating partner between these two conflicting nations. And that again is reflected in your answers. And similarly, even in the Hamas conflict and the Israeli response, India has tried to steer its way between a big focus on having the two-state theory, having a Palestinian state, and at the same time saying no to terrorism quite firmly and saying that terrorism should not be allowed to exist. I think our role in our neighborhood, the way in which we helped the Sri Lankan crisis, this builds up even from the COVID onwards, when we helped all our neighbors with our Maitri vaccine diplomacy, and we sent these vaccines across even when there could have been a shortfall in India, but we were able to overcome that, and we were able to help our friends in our neighborhood and across the world. And this has had a tremendously positive impact on India's stature, on India's leadership of the global south. Because I think here we have to add also the G20 summit, which was held in India. And this too has had a tremendous boost for India, not only globally with the developed world, but also as a leader of the global south. And we've had virtual global south summits also, 2 or 3 of them, which have really bolstered and strengthened India's leadership of the global south, and the trust which the countries of the global south are willing to place in Prime Minister Modi and his government, External Affairs Minister Jai Shankar and all the others. And we've seen that this team has really brought to India a role in world policy where there's very little that will happen without somebody or the other turning to India. The world community, the UN, the principal participants in any conflict, our neighborhood, and always looking at India as a country which will give a positive response, certainly in keeping with our own interests, but also in keeping with the interests of regional cooperation, regional peace, and world stability. I think what has happened in Bangladesh from July and August of this year has been a severe test for India's diplomacy, and a severe test for the people of Bangladesh, and a severe concern for India because of the potential spillover effects impact on India, since we have a 4,000-kilometer border with Bangladesh, and the severe disturbances that are there. There is law and order, no stability.
Right. No, I'll come back to you. I'll come back to you for some more perspective on the other big questions as well. But right now, let me quickly bring in Professor Nalapat as well for a quick response on this question on India's global stature. Clearly, it has risen, say, the overwhelming respondents of this survey, just 22% people saying no. out of 100%. Professor Nalapad, how do you view that?
Well, I'd like to say, Uday, I'd like to compliment your viewers on the fact that they are very accurate in reflecting choices. And there's no question that the overwhelming majority in support of the view that India's global stature has risen is absolutely correct. It has risen. And the basic reason is that Prime Minister Modi is not looking to be a deal maker. He is looking to be a peacemaker. As has correctly been said by Ambassador Sikri in the case of Sri Lanka. I mean, even if you examine further, you'll find even in Nepal, even in the Maldives, and India has been very helpful, even though governments there were far from helpful. So India has shown very clearly it's a good neighbor. As far as the global south is concerned, India is the largest country in the global south. The Chinese, frankly, don't belong to the global south. They are definitely part of the global north, both geographically as well as in terms of GDP. So India is definitely taking along the global south and looking at the interests of the global south. Look at the active interest that Prime Minister Modi, ably assisted by External Affairs Minister Jaishankar, is giving to the Pacific Islands. These are very strategically located countries. These are countries that are extremely important in various geopolitical situations, including in the stationing of, for example, facilities for ensuring that a proper surveillance and monitoring gets done. So it's very important they don't fall into hostile hands. And in a world which is now split into two camps, Prime Minister Modi has made it very clear that his is the camp of peace. At the same time, his is the camp of India first. Now, our relationship with Russia, well, I must say that there's a lot of sentimentalism in that, and that is reflected in the numbers. And there's absolutely no doubt that Prime Minister Modi has proved that India is a steadfast friend of Russia. It has refused to join this crusade against Russia, launched in 2022, kept away, and is ideally situated to become a peacemaker. As far as Gaza is concerned, very definitely India is against any form of terror, including that horrible act of terror perpetrated against Israel. At the same time, it's in favor of the rights of the Palestinian people to live in harmony and peace with the Jewish state next to them. The words are very important. Harmony and peace, not in constant conflict, not in tension, not harboring any terrorist groups. So in that point of view, India has taken a stand which is in its own best interest and coincidentally in the interest of the global south and coincidentally in the interest of the rest of the world. I think Europe is slowly coming around to the view that the Indian position of Ukraine is correct. It's better to make sure the war is over now.
Okay.
And with
absolutely. I'm going to come to all those questions. I'm going to come to all those questions individually, and I'll urge you to